What is up, wrestling fans? It is that time of the week for the FLZ Wrestling Team to talk all things pro wrestling and call it right down the middle. That's right, it's time for this week's edition of 607 TWS, the wrestling show. And we are live on the FLZ Zone, YouTube, Twitch, and X. Of course, I am your host. My name is Rich. Joining me in the co-pilot chair as she does each and every week, she is the hunter of the Pokemans because she's got to catch them all. She is the guru of cosplay, but more importantly, she is a pro grappling connoisseur. She's the first lady of FLZ Zone and FLZ Zone Wrestling, so little two credits there. It is the one and only Miss Sammy. How are you today?
I'm doing really good. I don't think we've had a chance to talk about this, but this is the 30th anniversary of the creation of Pokemon and the release of it. So there's all kinds of new Pokemon leaks and links and all kinds of new products out this year, and it's pretty fascinating. And I know you don't care, so let's talk about some pro wrestling.
Well, it's not that I don't care. It's just that I miss the Pokemon craze. I instead I'm gonna show this. I instead played Magic the Gathering. Which I get a hinkering for every once in a while, and I might have fire up the old arena. We'll find out. We'll see. But with that being said, speaking of getting a little bit nostalgic, shall we get a little bit nostalgic here? Because let's be honest, we don't usually talk about lineage, but there is a lineage of this show. Of course, I don't always say it, but I've been podcasting for 8 years now, the 3FN podcast. Back on that show, we had a little show called 3FNW, which was the 3FN wrestling show. I know, very creative, right? But out of that, we stopped doing wrestling because the other two guys didn't watch wrestling. And then I had a good friend who was like, hey, you got to talk wrestling. We need to talk wrestling. So I thought that it would be discouraging if I said, hey, you got to come talk wrestling with me. And it wasn't. He joined. And that's when we created 607 TWS, the wrestling show. And for those of you who don't know, the 607 is just where, myself and the person that I'm talking about are from. That's the area code. That's, as once again, nothing truly clever. It's just what it is. And then later on, we would go to a different channel. We would change the name of the show. We would meet the wonderful and beautiful Sammy. She would join the team. And then the other person effed off. However, that person happens to be the host of the ODPH podcast. He is also the editor-in-chief of FanlightZone.com. He is the guru of all things Fanlight. And guess what? He is gracing us with his presence tonight. Welcome the one and only Ken M back to the show that he helped create, 607 TWS. How are you tonight, Ken?
I am wonderful, in my busy schedule, sometimes you gotta, cut some things off, and it broke my heart to do so. But I always said when there's a free break in the schedule, I will jump back in and obviously defend our trios tag team titles across the internet, anytime, any place, anywhere. So tonight just happened to be that lucky night. So everybody,
that night,
it has been a long time coming. We have not done this since WrestleMania last year at the other place?
Yeah. I think we did a guest spot on WrestleMania last year, I do believe, if I'm not mistaken.
But that was then. This is now. This is FanLight Zone, your home for comics, pop culture, and the best wrestling program on YouTube today, bar none. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you share it. You tell your friends. You tell your friends. Anybody that's into pro wrestling, if you're not following FanlightZone.com and the YouTube channel, you're missing out on exclusive content. And trust us, 607 TWS is your favorite wrestling journalist podcast from what we've been told. So, who am I to argue? That's what I get told. So, like Becky Lynch. She gets told she's the greatest wrestler of all time. It's, that's what everybody talks about. I get told 607 TWS is the best wrestling podcast on the planet. Who am I to say no? Here we are.
I would agree with that, but that's just self-serving. But also up in the corner there above my finger is the QR code. That'll take you over to FanlightZone.com. Go there and check out all the awesomeness, including all of our wonderful comic book reviews. Nobody does New Comic Book Day like FanlightZone.com, and that is not because I do a crap ton of reviews, because I do, and Ken does a crap ton of reviews, which he does. It is because, hey, we can boast them. It's some good stuff. So with that being said, join, help us fight the algorithm, help us continue to battle, whether it is on the comic front, the pop culture front, or the pro wrestling front with the show. But that's enough of the memory lane and everything else. We got a pro wrestling show to talk about. So let's dive right in and get to the show that we were going to be doing right up until like peek behind the curtain about 10 minutes ago. So with that being said, let's kick it off with the first bit of business. And that, of course, is this upcoming Saturday is a huge event for our friends over at All Elite Wrestling, as they will be putting on AEW Grand Slam Australia 2026. This will be coming to you from the Quitos Bank Arena in Sydney, Australia. Of course, this is going to be a huge event, and we're going to talk all about it. We do have a rundown of the card. We're going to break down the card, and we're going to talk about some things happening in around it going on. So let's start off by talking about the card. We have a mixed tornado tag team match. And by the way, it is a hair versus hair match because the loser of the fall. So that means whoever gets pinned or submitted will have their head shaved bald. And on one side, we've got Orange Cassidy. And then we've also teaming with him, Timeless Tony Storm, taking on the Death Riders team of Wheeler Yuta and Marina Shafir. One of those four will end up joining the Ricochet Bald Club. I'm also part of that club. I'd take the hat off, but it would probably mess up the lighting in here and blind everybody. So we're not going to do that. But what team do we got winning? And who do we got leaving bald? We're going to start. We're going to do ladies first. So Sammy, who's leaving Australia with a bald head, and who's getting their hands raised?
I mean, how could it not be Wheeler Yuta? How is he not leaving bald? I mean, he's like the butt of every joke in AEW. Very successfully, by the way. I'm not saying that to put him down. He works that role magically. So how is he not the one leaving? Plus his hair, the shaggy, the beard. It's time for a change anyway. Fresh, clean look.
Ken, what do you got?
It has to be Wheeler. Like, honestly, who else could it be in that match? I mean, I don't want to say like that's your lock of the week, but yeah, there's nobody else who's going to be taking the pin right there. And it makes sense. Give Wheeler something new. Maybe this gets him away from the Death Riders. I don't know, but I think that, yeah, this is a smart play to do, and Wheeler is definitely taking the L.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Wheeler being the one that leaves bald, because I do believe it would lead to some other interesting things that he could do and freshen some things up. However, I will say this. If anybody bets against Tony Storm shaving her head, that would be wild. Because I think that she honestly would 110% do it. And for no other reason. I would put her
as, the odds was she'd be number 2 on the list of taking the pin. And yeah.
Because if you think about it, she would create some kind of crazy reinvention with a bald head. And I, you know what? I'd be for it, because I love the work that Timeless Tony Storm does. So with that being said, we're moving on to the next match, and this is a singles match, and the winner will receive an AEW World Championship match at Revolution. Of course, that's the next pay-per-view from All Elite Wrestling, going down on March 15th. In this match, we got Hangman Adam Page taking on Andrade El Idolo, and he'll have Don Callis in his corner because, of course, he's a member of the Don Callis family, like about 45 other people. Ken, who do you think is going to be challenging at this point in juncture Maxwell Jacob Friedman, because we'll talk about that later, for the AEW World Championship at Revolution?
Give me Andrade. Honestly, Hangman is always going to be in that main event scene, and rightfully so. But Andrade, now officially with All Elite, why not switch it up and really give the fans something new? And to see him and MJF, I mean, obviously they got their little Twitter thing going on, but this is something to really build into, and I think Andrade could definitely use the win more. I mean, Hangman, we've already seen have the world title and kind of go through this phase. I think to switch it up and really throw a curveball at the fans, this is the play to do.
I'm going to agree with you. I think that Andrade would be a nice, fresh look. However, will they pull that trigger or not? I don't know. Here's the thing. MJF is doing some of his best heel work that he's done for quite some time. He's got a lot of boos, but you have to walk this really fine line with MJF because he is that cool heel. So there is moments where if you do something to whatever, he's going to become a face accidentally again. And I don't think you need that right now. I think you need MJF, firing on all cylinders in his heel glory. So putting him against Andrade is definitely going to force him into that avenue, if you will. So I worry about that. However, I'm going to say Andrade just because I want to see the fresh matchup. Sammy, you're up last, but who you got?
I'm actually picking Hangman here, and it's not that Andrade's not worthy of it. He's certainly having an amazing run right now between AEW and New Japan right now, but it would be a disservice to that to have him win, which would be awesome, but then to go up against MJF and just ultimately knowing that he's going to lose it because they're not going to take the belt off of MJF right now. I feel that this match will end in a lot of the similar fashion that other matches have recently, where another one of those main event guys is just going to get involved, and Andrade will end up losing, but he's just going to continue being right involved in the thick of all this.
Yeah, I think you're right there too, because I think the smart bet is Hangman, only because, like I said, you have to be really careful with MJF because he can become a face like that just because he's just cool. Like he really is. I mean, who else in the history of wrestling got fans chanting he's our scumbag? Like it's weird, but he's good at what he does, and no qualms about it. We'll be talking about MJF by himself a little later, so I don't want to dive too much into that right now. But there is we got more matches to come and other big ones. Here's another one. AEW Continental Championship on the line. Your champion Jon Moxley taking on Takeshita. That's right, Takeshita versus Moxley. Put your mouth guards in because this is going to be one of those bangers that somebody else is very famous for talking about. Listen, I think this is a great match setup. We were all wondering what was happening with Jon Moxley after he won the Continental Classic and the Continental Championship. I do believe that it was a good, fresh look, especially after coming off of Moxley being the guy who was starting to tap out to everybody. So the way that they changed everything up was pretty awesome there. I do not see the title changing hands. However, I do think that this is going to be more of that implosion and corrosion of the Don Callis family. As you know, Okada and Takeshita are not on the same page, and Don Callis is really kind of like hitched his wagon to Okada. Kyle Fletcher is the guy being pulled in the middle. We'll talk about him in a minute. So I'm going to go with Jon Moxley winning this match. Sammy, you're up next. Who do you got winning and walking out of Australia as your Continental Champion?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. Moxley's going to retain, and that side of the story is really more important. Moxley's done a great job really inventing himself after a title run that went on far too long, and now he's found himself with the belt again, but this is a lot fresh. It's a lot different. It feels fun, so it's not time to end that either. But I agree. This is more storyline for the other side.
All right, Ken, your choice.
I think it should be Moxley, even though I'd love to see this it go the other way. But I think Okada is going to get involved here in some way, somehow, and that extends the storyline. But yeah, Moxley's going to retain because of reasons.
All right, moving right along. More championships on the line. AEW Women's World Tag Team Championship, to be specific. We have your champions, the Babes of Wrath, Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale, and they will be defending against Mega Bad. That is the Megasis, Megan Bain and Penelope Ford. And once again, the women's division, I'm going to say I was guilty of it. I think we were all guilty of going, hey, this women's division doesn't really need a tag team division. And guess what? Giving them credit, AEW has done very well with their women's tag team division. It really feels like you have real tag teams in this division. And not just because they have, fun names. They are tagging all the time. So I do dig that. But Sammy, you're the expert here. Who do you think is leaving Sydney with the AEW Women's World Tag Team Championships?
I think this has to be an and new situation if you really want to continue to build this tag team division. Like you said, it's got some really good footing here, but you need to start highlighting the other teams, and I think it's time for the belts to kind of flip here. And that's not to say that it won't go back at some point down the road, but if you want to keep building this, it does need to move, in my opinion.
Agreed. Ken, your choice.
And still, I think they're going to retain because I think ultimately they're going to lose it to the Triangle of Madness. And I think Sky Blue and Julia Hart are going to take the belts off them at Revolution. I have this odd suspicion going off, and I don't want to jump too far ahead because of what happened at Dynamite last night as we were recording. I think that they're going to really build up that faction to be the dominant faction in the women's division of AEW. So I think they retain here. It's going to be a great match. It's going to be very close, but I think you're going to see the Babes of Wrath sneak out a win. But I think ultimately they lose at Revolution, and that really puts over what they're doing with Tekla, Sky Blue, and Julia Hart.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's hard to ignore the, in the room, it's we have a new AEW Women's World Champion. Tekla is the new AEW Women's World Champion. It makes sense that you would go with her, that trio and then hook them up. Great match, by the way. Don't want to do any disservices. Great match on Dynamite between Tekla and Chris Statlander. But I'm with you on that. So I'm going to say and still for that same reason, because I think the Babes of Wrath will probably drop it to the team of Julia Hart and Sky Blue. And it looks like they're really building that faction up, and I hope they are.
Agreed.
I've been very surprised as of late, for a women's division where we were really being like, hey, it's Mercedes Moné beating everybody. What are you going to do? To now we had Chris Statlander with a successful title run that went very well. Tekla becoming your new champion in a great match. Willow Nightingale, of course, we didn't even mention, but is the TBS champion as well as one half of the tag team champions. So I feel like they have a really, really healthy women's division going on right now. And it's not saying anything against Mercedes, because I don't think her being gone on sabbatical, if you will, is the reason it's healthy. I just think that they needed to create fresh opportunities. And like me and Sammy have been talking about on this show, they've done a really good job of taking advantage of some really good booking going out of the end of 2025 and into 2026. So AEW has actually really become destination television, in my opinion, because of the booking, which I wouldn't have said that 6 months ago. But now, clearly, they're booking things a lot better. And I think the women's division is one of those we can point to. There was a misstep, though, and oh boy, I'm gonna go first. I'm gonna go out of order, so we'll give Ken the main event spot, because there's one match before the main event, and that is the ladder match for the AEW TNT Championship. Your new AEW TNT champion, Kyle Fletcher, taking on the former champion, Mark Briscoe. All right, I'm just gonna lay my cards on the table. Nothing about this match to start off, and I just want to go on this. And it's not even to start off where I normally do, where I say the man with no aura, Kyle Fletcher. I understand. We can have it until we're blue in the face that Kyle Fletcher is a talented in-ring performer. It's nothing against Kyle Fletcher's in-ring work. His gimmick, what is his gimmick? We don't know. I don't know if he entertains me. But let's put all that aside. You have Tommaso Ciampa come in. You make him the TNT champion. Granted, he has a phenomenal match with Kyle Fletcher, but he loses the belt, basically has it for a cup of tea. So why even make him champion? So then we can go ahead and have, for the 7th time, because they even put a 7 after the matchup, Kyle Fletcher versus Mark Briscoe. Did we really need the 7th encounter of them in the past 5 months? This is one of those times where, once again, we call it down the middle. We've talked about how strong the booking has been. And here I'm going, why are we going back to the same well? Why? If you really wanted to do a ladder match, why didn't you just save Tommaso Ciampa versus Fletcher for that ladder match? And hey, he could have won the belt, if you really want to make him champion, in his home country of Australia, gotten the huge pop. Instead, no, we'll have him drop it on Dynamite to then turn around and have him defend it in Australia. Obviously, Kyle Fletcher is going to win the match. This was one of those times. It was such an egregious misstep that I can't help but call it out. Like I said, if I'm going to give them all the credit in the world for other things, I have to take it away for why is this doesn't make sense. So we're going to hot potato a title just so what to contractually get Ciampa a championship on him? His flavor, usually it's the flavor of a month or two. He's only the flavor of the week. I don't know. Like, to me, this made no sense. But Kyle Fletcher's going to win the match. Ken, go ahead, and who's your pick?
Go, Kyle Fletcher. Proto Star Kyle Fletcher. Yeah, listen, I am with you. I cannot understand why they would book it the way they did. And if you really wanted Fletcher to get a pop in his home country, you should have had him win here. Like, there was no purpose to do it on Dynamite, even though that was Dynamite's arguably best match in months for just being on live television. And that's saying something with the talented roster they have. But it didn't make any sense. And I don't think anybody has really, with all due respect to Fletcher and Briscoe, nobody was saying that's the fight forever I want to keep seeing. I don't think that there was a great storyline involving it. I don't think that you have your fan base that invested. Like, you had the big payoff match way back when. We don't need to keep going to this. So it doesn't make any sense why they're doing this, other than Fletcher retains. And then what are we going to do at Revolution? Are we going to have Ciampa get another shot at it and then give it back to him? Like, it's a weird setup here that I think it's ultimately you're going to have to do a 3-way between those three gentlemen. And then whatever happens at Revolution happens at Revolution. But I think for this match, this feels like it's thrown together. I don't like how it was set up. Fletcher wins because reasons again, and we go from here.
Sammy, your pick.
Yeah, Fletcher wins here, but I think we summed it up pretty well. Is that, AEW is really turned things around, but that there's still some times where you just see that very, very interesting and just kind of weird Tony Khan booking, and this is just an example of it, where it doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's always easy to kind of fan book, but in this case, I mean, come on, it was incredibly easy to book this and make it make a ton of sense, but TK's got his way.
Yeah, and it's hard to say because, like, they've been doing so well and I've been putting them over, and like, it's one of those situations where is it because Ciampa can't go to Australia? Like, and I don't think that's the reason. It makes no sense to me. And the reason I say that is just because, like, you're looking at the fact that why would you do it then when you could have just done the title match and had the big win with a big pop in Australia? Like, that,
Right.
That doesn't make any sense. I mean, let alone that I'm not a fan of them, hot shotting the belt around when they're, usually known to take care of belts better than that. But it's just weird to me. Maybe there's some deeper story we don't know about, but I tend to believe, like, sometimes it's like, the famous line, like a dog to vomit. I feel like that happens even when things are going very well. There's just that itch to, like, let's just do something that just makes no sense. Why? Because we want to be the company that shocks you. And it's not really shocking more than it is like, ugh, ugh. But I digress. We do have a main event that we're all interested in for the AEW World Championship. Your champion, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF, taking on Big Bad Brody King. This is a rematch of sorts, of course, coming from not this past Dynamite, but the Dynamite before. Made a lot of news cycles. We did talk about that last week. We're not going to dive into minutia, mostly because I'm not getting booted off of YouTube and all that happy jazz for talking about things that clearly I'm okay with. Go back and listen to last week if you want to hear more opinions where we danced around that. But I do like this choice. We have Brody King versus MJF. There was a little bit of some rumor and innuendo that WBD was not happy about the attention that one Brody King got, and they were trying to keep him off television. But then that's been quelled, and it's been assured by WBD, who put out a statement today, today as Thursday, that he is scheduled and he is wrestling, and they have no issues at all. So there's that. So a lot of internet buzz for no reason. It's one of those talking head things that certain people jive out there, right? But here it is. Title on the line. Going to start with you, Ken. You are the guest of honor. Who is walking out of Australia, out of Grand Slam Australia, as your AEW World Heavyweight Champion?
Should be Brody Lee, but I
Brody
think
King,
Brody King, I'm sorry about that.
It should be Brody Lee.
Yeah,
it should be. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, big man.
Yes, but Brody should win this, but no, it's gonna be MJF. I think for how they did the squash, that's the reason why. I think that they're trying to build up King as the huge baby face for the company, and I think giving it to him right now, I think would be the right move. But I can understand if they want to delay it a little bit and have him go for storyline purposes to build it up. Like I say, I just think they're going to build up for Revolution to be something huge. So I think they're going to wait on that. MJF wins by nefarious means, and then we see what happens then.
Sammy, you are up now. Who do you got walking out of the AEW World Champion?
Yeah, MJF is going to win here, and I think it's going to be something nefarious, probably like a low blow, ref spot, ref distracted, low blow type thing, which I'm fine with because this match is important in a lot of other ways. That the finish exactly doesn't really matter, but this needs to be one of those matches that absolutely builds a star. MJF is going to have to work his butt off, and Brody King as well, of course. But this is a huge opportunity for AEW. They have struggled with booking, the big boys, and we've seen these type of crowd reactions for Brody King before, and this is the hottest it's been. So this is one of those opportunities where you can build a megastar even in a loss, and I hope AEW can capitalize on it.
If you were in Chicago, if you were in Minnesota, there's no way Brody King's not walking out world champion. The fact that you're in Australia, I think, is the reason why you saved that. Here's the thing. I'm not saying this over, and I don't think MJF's title reign should come to an end because I'm really enjoying it. He is the ratings. He is the ratings driver. Let's be honest. When he is world champion, people watch. It's not hyperbole. It's not me trying to talk them up. It is actually, if you look at the numbers, their numbers are up whenever MJF is champion. Go back to his first run. Go to now. There's obviously a connection. Once again, that's because he can do it all. He's he's the real 5-tool player. You know what I mean? And he gets people to watch and talk about him. Brody King. Now you got me doing the Freudian slip. Brody King does a very, very good job. There is a question, of course, lingering, and me and Sammy have pondered this, and even in the past, me and you kind of pondered this. AEW booking big men. Seems like the big guys leave because they don't book them well. Here's your opportunity, because just because you lose a match in pro wrestling doesn't mean you lose.
Right. You
can go over. You could have a star-making performance. MJF is going to get it done in the ring. He's going to bring his A game. He's going to make sure Brody King looks like $1 million. Brody King has all the talent in the world. He's going to look like he's going to have look like $1 million. And I think that's the big takeaway. This should set up down the road a future Brody King world title win. But like I said, if you were in the States, I'd make the argument possibly for now, just because it's hard for me not to. The booker in me looks like I want to get as much coverage as I can. And when you have mainstream media talking about what's happening on your show, whether you agree with it or not is irrelevant. That's still the mainstream media talking about what's happening on your show. And I think that's important. I think that's very, very important. And I think at the end of the day, when WBD put out that
there's
statement,
no bad press, right?
Yep.
Right. But here's the thing. You're getting praised by one end, and yes, you're getting teared and vilified by another end. You're going to have that all the time. But here's the thing. You're still getting covered. And on top of all that, like I said, WBD understands that, hence why they put that statement out that if it was false, that they wanted him pulled, because they understand all press is good press. It's bottom line. It's, there's a lot, and that, whether I agree with it or not, think about it. All press is good press. It's just how it works. Speaking of, so that's going to be a Grand Slam. That's going down Saturday in place of Collision. It's Grand Slam Australia. We had that wonderful event last year, also in February. So it seems they like to do it around Valentine's Day. I remember I watched Grand Slam Australia last year from a hotel room in Connecticut after going up to visit Sammy and moving in a snowy day. It was a rather snowy day that day, or turned out to be.
Yes.
So it is. It was Valentine's Day weekend.
Do you remember the disaster of the first Grand Slam Australia?
Of course I do, but
yeah, this one has. No, I'm just saying this is a perfect example of them really wiping the slate clean here. This is a completely different type of show and card and position of AEW and their commitment to doing this. So kudos to them.
They're in the bigger area in Sydney, and on top of that, they didn't promise a stadium originally, and then peel it back. We're going to stay talking about AEW. Speaking of media and press, and no such thing as bad press, MJF was on Chris Van Vliet's show. This actually dropped earlier today, so this is a quick turnaround for us. And man, I got to shout out Chris Van Vliet is always an amazing listen. If you do not watch his shows and his interviews, I suggest highly you should, because always top tier. So just putting him over. But MJF was on, and we're going to talk about it. There's some things being said, and I'm not going to listen. I get exactly what MJF was talking, because he mentioned that. I know people are going to talk and they're going to blow things out of proportion. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to kind of go over some things. First of all, one of my takeaways is this was definitely, they promised it kind of as a peek behind the curtain, if you will, a more serious one with MJF. This was, as we know, MJF famously usually stays in character for the duration of his of any interview, whether it's wrestling or not. This one, he kind of goes in and out of character, but spends a lot of time as himself, answering questions really candidly, sometimes a little over top, but really candidly. Some of the stuff that's going to catch the press and caught my eye from him talking about, he did have some choice words for CM Punk. Did say that it was growing up, it was his favorite wrestler and he enjoyed it. But yeah, so it's interesting. It's very interesting. And yeah, now we're going on to, I don't want to say the clear, colorful language because he did call him a scumbag, which is fine, but he's had some other colorful stuff to it. One of the things that I think was really, really cool that they did was he was talking about who he would like to wrestle, like his dream opponents. And his answer for his overall answer, it was Kevin Steen. Not Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen. And the reason he said that is not to take anything away from Kevin Owens, but he thought that the segments between them verbally would be better if it was Kevin Steen and he was allowed to say the things that Kevin Steen said during his Kevin Steen run. Then, next up, he talks about, also on that list was Seth Rollins, which makes a lot of sense. He did say, before people blow it out of proportion, that the reason he's not mentioned a lot of people in AEW is he has the opportunity to wrestle them, and he's wrestled most of them. There's a couple people who he hasn't gotten to yet, as i.e., believe it or not, he's never wrestled Swerve Strickland one-on-one in AEW. So he's very interested to do that. But, obviously he has that opportunity. So when you say dream matches, it has to be something that he doesn't have the opportunity currently doing. He did say all time, though, if you were talking dead or alive, Roddy Piper was the pick. Hands down. And the final thing, before I pass this around for talking about it, the final thing that he had mentioned was, well, it's two things. Mentioned telling people to stop being so tribalistic, and if you haven't given AEW a chance, you should, because it's worth watching, and it's really silly that people, stick to one or the other in their narratives, which we've agreed with for 110% here for as long as we're talking. Once again, like what you like, but you don't need to tear things down. And then on top of that, he mentioned that he gave a big shout out to Cody Rhodes and said that his career would not be where it is without Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare, who is the one who helped him get introduced to Tony Khan and get his job with AEW. So, and he also would talk about the movies, putting over Adam Sandler, his quote unquote dad, talking about how he's in Violent Night 2, amongst other things. He did talk about getting married and his wife, which he usually doesn't touch at all. So like, it's kind of like, it was really kind of refreshing. Like I said, he came in and out, a lot of stuff there to unpack, but we'll start with you, Ken, because you're the guest of honor. What was your takeaway kind of from what was coming out of this interview?
A great interview. I mean, Chris Van Vliet does amazing work. So if you haven't checked his stuff out, make sure you do. And it was really a cool moment with MJF because he did kind of walk the line of in character and being, himself. I love the fact about Kevin Steen, though, because Kevin Owens and Kevin Steen are two different people on the microphone. And that is a very interesting point that he brings up. I would love to see that for that said reason, because that mic battle would be amazing. But overall, I mean, it's great work, and you wonder why MJF's a superstar. He's making that crossover into pop culture, which the Stone Colds and the Rocks have, and he's going to be the next one to break out, in my opinion.
Sammy, what's your thoughts?
There was a clip or a segment of the interview where he was talking about his position within AEW, and he was talking about himself and how he's always been himself. He's been consistent the entire time, and I wouldn't 100% agree with that. I think he's continued to evolve a little bit. You see new iterations of him, but at his core, he's always been the same person, I think, is what he was trying to say. But he was talking specifically about the type of pressure that can be on someone in his position where he has to perform at that level. If a job, and he was relaying into, if a jobber comes for the night and has an amazing, just blowout kind of match and just goes absolutely nuts, people are going to go, and talk about that for forever. But MJF has to do that every week. to have just, we kind of take advantage of MJF in a way because he's still incredibly young in his life and in his wrestling career and in everything. And, he's put in this position of having to be like an elder statesman, even though he's not even in the prime of his career yet. So, kudos to him for the insight he was able to provide and his openness to talk. Chris Family is the best in the business. So, to have someone who claims to be, another one of the best in the world with another one in another field is the best in the world. It was very insightful.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have not checked it out, go on over. It is up now, and it's a good watch. It's a little over an hour long. It's a very good, very, very good watch. I don't want to ignore the chat, but this was interesting. Joshua says, "Did you saw the poster with AJ Lee and CM Punk, Chicago with Triple H? Show us in video, please." Well, I there's nothing to show. If you want to see it, there's no one. The Elimination Chamber poster is of CM Punk and AJ Lee. There's no Triple H in the poster, so I'm not quite sure what you're talking about, unless there's some AI one floating around. But the very real one is just AJ Lee and CM Punk, and just throwing that out there. And of course, it would be because they're in Chicago.
Yeah.
The smart money is if WWE is in Chicago, CM Punk will be on the poster, and AJ Lee, of course, also lives in Chicago now because she's married to CM Punk, or was in Chicago for a long time. So I'm not sure. So I don't know if there's another one floating around, but there is no Triple H in the poster. I can promise you that much, from what I can gather. Let's move on. Speaking of things that are exciting, let's talk about rumors. Let's move to WWE. There's some big rumors coming after the Super Bowl. And it's going to lead us into, of course, our road to WrestleMania talk, which we're talking everything else. But huge rumor coming about, obviously Super Bowl 60 halftime show, Bad Bunny. I know there was some controversy with some people. I did enjoy the halftime show. It was a lot of fun. It was a very educational piece. I know Dog also enjoyed the halftime show for some reasons we can't talk about on air. But outside of that, it was a good time was had by all. But coming into this, there's been some noticings and there's been some rumblings that maybe WrestleMania plans might be for Logan Paul to take on Bad Bunny at WrestleMania 42, and there might be some smoke to this fire. And the reason I say that there should maybe some smoke to this fire is coming into the Super Bowl halftime show, Logan Paul has had this interesting take for Bad Bunny, which got broke. We're going to talk about in a second. He was saying how he is the best outsider to come into wrestling and take over. He is also doing it full time. He's tired of hearing people put Bad Bunny over as the best outsider to come in. That's his projective. Now, Bad Bunny made some comments about after, some touring is done, they'd never say never to coming back to wrestling, and mention Logan Paul. In between this, though, in Super Bowl week, Logan Paul had to break character a little bit because, and I'm not going to go over too deep, his brother made some comments about Bad Bunny and his upcoming performance. And Logan Paul, actually, to give him complete credit, put over Bad Bunny and said, much like everybody else in WWE, we're rooting for him and hope he does great at the Super Bowl. Triple H, of course, day of show for the Super Bowl, cheered him on as well. So the company was very much behind Bad Bunny, which they should be, as he's been an integral part of a lot of business that they've done over there. So right after the Super Bowl, though, Logan Paul went right back into it, including on Raw, cutting a promo where he does mention, once again, being an outsider coming in and the best to do it, which gets a lot of people talking. Now, we're looking for big marquee matches at WrestleMania 42 in Las Vegas. We've Sammy and I have been talking about this, so maybe I'll go to Ken first on it, because me and Sammy have been talking about this. We're going to talk more about the road to WrestleMania. We've said that outside of the planned main event that we have so far, there's a lot of things where we're like, that undercard has to fire. Logan Paul versus Bad Bunny on paper is a good way to get this card firing. Ken, two questions. A, are you for a Logan Paul versus Bad Bunny match at WrestleMania? And B, what is your percentage that match will happen?
1, yes. Give it to me. 2, because I don't know his touring schedule or anything in that variation. I'm going to say right now 50%, because I think if he can do it And kudos to Logan on this aspect. He knows creating a little buzz, getting Bunny's attention. Bunny loves wrestling as much as anybody else. That'll get him involved. If he can swing it, I don't see why they don't do it. It's a main event you can do there. And trust me, pop culture will tune in and tune out for it. Like, they'll be really excited for it. So I think, yeah, if they can swing it, it's at least at 50%.
So before you give your answer, I do want to answer one of the things you brought up. I brought up Bad Bunny's tour dates. You're going to love this.
That's what I have up right now.
Bad Bunny is touring all the way till April 5th on a world tour, which that part of the world tour ends on April 5th in Zurich, Switzerland. He picks back up on his world tour in Barcelona, Spain on May 22nd. So
okay.
He stops touring on the 5th. He goes back at the end of May. WrestleMania is about 2 weeks after his first leg of his world tour stops. So that could add some fuel to the fire, because that's enough time to get in there and get the ring rust off 100%. So Sammy, same questions to you. Would you be excited to see Logan Paul versus Bad Bunny at WrestleMania? And what is your percentage that this match might happen?
So based on the state of the WWE roster and main event roster and current bookings, yes, I would 100% want to see this. What's my thought on the percentage? I would say we're upwards of probably 65%. And the reason why I'm not higher is just because that second half of the tour is already booked. There's a lot of money there. And yeah, there's plenty of time to do it, but there is still that injury factor. And if he was to get hurt and have to disrupt that tour, that would be bad. That'd be the bad part of the bunny.
I'm going to say this. I'm with you. Of course, I'd be excited to see this. They're both of them have been phenomenal. They both have done some really good things in the ring. Obviously, Logan Paul being there full time. It would be a great match. We were talking last week in particular about how they need to stoke the undercard to really get the interest up. This would do that. This would also catch mass appeal. Both of them are huge stars outside of wrestling. So this brings in that outside media that we were just talking about when we were talking about AEW. So this makes sense on all the levels. I will say this, though. I'm with you, Sammy, on the percentage. I'm going to go 60-65% that it'll happen as of right now. I think that for me, the scheduling works out even better, because if you think about it, there's a full month between WrestleMania and the pickup of the second half of the tour. So it almost appears that he left a window to get ready and then to recoup from WrestleMania. Like, it almost appears that, like, if you when I looked at that schedule, I almost went like, oh, this could be a lock, because it almost looks like there's like I said, there's like a 2.5 weeks before Mania to get ready. And then there's literally a month after to also recoup. So it's one of those things. And once again, I get what your point, but let's be honest. If Bad Bunny was to take a bad injury, as long as he can sit in a chair on stage, people will still come.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being serious.
No,
people will still come. And so and he's also not one of those guys, I think, that's worried about that. Ironically enough, I feel like he's a live in the moment kind of guy, which is a good thing. You know, you live in the moment, take the chances. You only live once, however you want to say it. And I think that's one of the strong suits for Bad Bunny. Speaking of which, let's talk a little bit about some, we'll call it quick hits on the road to WrestleMania, because it is the road to WrestleMania. We'll be following this. Of course, next stop on the road to WrestleMania is Backlash. Elimination Chamber. Why did I say Backlash? Ooh, Backlash. I know I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough for Mania, but Backlash? I'm not on Backlash? Anyways, Elimination Chamber. And of course, we have we could dive in. I'm not going to wallow in it because we don't have all the spots open. They are doing the normal, matches to get in to see who's going to be in both the men's and women's chambers. The winner of that will get a shot at whatever title the winners of the Rumble don't pick. We already know Roman Reigns has picked CM Punk. The interesting wrinkle here for Elimination Chamber is we're getting this story, this actually really good story. I know me and Sammy both have been enjoying it, with Finn Balor versus CM Punk. And now it's going to happen at Elimination Chamber for the World Heavyweight title, which means, in theory, Punk's main event at WrestleMania against Roman Reigns may be at jeopardy. So the big question on the road to WrestleMania this week is, and I don't want to use percentages, but we'll just say, do you think Finn Balor could win this match legitimately. They could put him over. And B, let's say that they do. Is Finn Balor versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania a bigger match than Roman Reigns versus CM Punk? So we'll start with you, Sammy, this time. What is your thoughts?
No and no. No, and that really speaks to the state of WWE's main event scene. And let's run through it real quick. John Cena retired. AJ Styles is seemingly retired. I mean, it seems like he has. There's been plenty of talk about his contract situation. Everything. He's gone. Seth Rollins is hurt. Now Braun Breaker is hurt. Roman Reigns is a part-timer. Brock Lesnar, nobody cares about. So you're kind of really hurt for people at the top of the card. And this is something we were texting about earlier, because we haven't gotten it yet. And the longer it goes on, it doesn't seem like we're going to get it. WWE actually could really use Chris Jericho right now, not for a long term, but to be able to bring in someone with an established name and put him at the top of the card would really kind of help them right now. 6 months from now, it would be a different problem. But that, again, we need to fix things right now, because you've had to try and heat Finn Balor back up, who has just been called Pin Balor for the past couple of years, because that's all he's been doing. He's eating pinfalls. So I love Finn Balor. I think he's an amazing storyteller. I think he's an amazing in-ring competitor. And I hope that this story with Punk will get him back to being at that top of the card, because that's where he should be, and winning feuds and winning matches. Because while wins and losses don't always matter, sometimes they do. When you see someone always eating the pin, it's kind of like, we know you're going to lose. So Punk and Roman is the best they got right now. You could do Roman and Cody again, but do we really want to see Roman and Cody again? Not really, not right now, not yet. We beg for Cody and Randy to do a story. We're just not going to get that, I guess, anytime soon, ever, maybe. Who knows? So Roman and Cody is the best you got, or Roman and Punk is the best you got right now, and that has to be your main event. This is a great year for, Liv Morgan and Stephanie Vacchura to very much main event night one of WrestleMania, to get a women's main event.
Agreed. Ken, your thoughts?
No and no. All right. So this is the easiest breakdown for it. And for a second, I thought Chris Jericho winning the Elimination Chamber would put him and Roman in a match, if Finn wins there, which I'm like, I don't think that would work either. Finn is going to have one of the biggest moments at WrestleMania, but it's not going to be involving the world title. He's going to be the one to beat Dominic Mysterio for the IC title. And I think that this is the loss that pushes him over the edge, that he finally breaks away from the Judgment Day. You've been hearing the crowd wanting the old Finn Balor back. I mean, when he did the old entrance, and, there's some nostalgia there that I think fans are starting to remember how good he is. And like I said, when Sammy was saying about Finn Balor, yeah, everybody kind of forgot how good he is. So now to kind of have him have a redemption story that he could never win the big one in WWE, he finally beats Dominic Mysterio at WrestleMania. That's a better storyline, because you do, on your current roster right now, even if you add Chris Jericho into the mix, you don't have a better main event for WrestleMania than Punk and Reigns. You're not going to mess with that unless somebody unforeseenly gets injured, which I hope does not happen, because that promo that they cut to kick things off, that was absolutely what they needed to spark some interest. If they have to pivot because of some other reasons, that's another story, but you don't want to mess up that road. And for Finn, yeah, he's going to put on a hell of a performance. He's going to come up short. Maybe Dom costs him the match. I could see that happen, and then boom, you build your storyline there, but you're not going to mess with that main event.
Yeah, I'm with that, because here's the thing. My logic behind this is, okay, so what happens if Finn Balor wins and he has the belt, and then he hot shots the belt back to Punk? That doesn't help anybody. Doesn't help Punk. Right. Doesn't help Balor. If Finn Balor wins and they now turn it into a triple threat, now we're just going back to the well of last year. Only, in no disrespect, because I'm a huge Finn Balor fan, but it was different when there was all that rich story with Seth, Roman, and Punk. I wouldn't even want to see that ran back 2 years in a row, because that doesn't excite me. But now you're going to be the less than. Maybe in ring it'll still be fine, but you're going to be the less than because of the story. And it's just like rehashing last year. So once again, chalk that up to no. And then the last but not least, if you replace CM Punk versus Roman Reigns, which is a clear-cut night 2 main event, right? 2 of the biggest names ever. The guy whose name is on top of the wrestling business, whether people like it or not, in Roman Reigns, and then CM Punk, who is, let's be honest, whether people like him or not, once again irrelevant because arenas chant his name. That is a night 2 main event. That is the big marquee that you need to put on last. Finn Balor, although I love Finn Balor and I like Finn Balor, as a businessman, I go, well, that's not going to excite more people, and it's not going to attract people from outside or lapsed fans or the fans who only watch WrestleMania. You know what I mean? You have to worry about all of these things when putting the show on. So you have to go with the big match. Now, if they wouldn't have announced Punk versus Roman so quickly, which I wouldn't have, then you could make the argument that you would really believe Finn Balor had a shot.
Mm.
But I think after talking last week with Sammy, the reason why they hot-shotted into Roman and Punk, which was a great promo, was because they knew that they were in trouble. We were talking about how stale this road to WrestleMania has felt thus far, and I understand we're in the infancy, and how there is no direction. You have lost a lot of big stars. And then it was like, okay, you have to rely on the undercard. Well, there's a lot of people on the undercard that are gone. So now what are you going to do? Hence why Logan Paul and Bad Bunny makes all the sense in the world, right? Because that's that big marquee. So now you had to tell the fans that are still buying tickets that, hey, we have one thing in place, a huge main event. Here's your main event. It makes sense, but it doesn't, you know what I mean? It's not, I think it's a more of a desperation move than a power move. They're not coming from the upper hand on this. They're coming from a desperation move. And then, of course, releasing more of how greedy they want to be with ticket sales and merchandise and everything else they're doing. Thanks for TKO putting out, earnings report and making, putting your foot in your mouth, right? Once again, when you make the former owner look like a baby face somehow, which that's a terrible thing to do. Mark Shapiro should get an award for that.
Well, it's kind of alarming because if you look at the state of the roster, your 3 biggest baby faces are Roman, CM Punk, and Cody. What is Cody even going to do at WrestleMania?
Randy Orton.
Well, that would be my answer to strengthen the undercard. Unfortunately, the creative bankruptcy there means we're probably just going to get Cody versus Drew at Mania. We're going to do all this at Elimination Chamber against Drew. I hope not. I hope somebody like LA Knight wins or somebody else who would be interesting and fresh in the match. But let's be honest. They've been so creatively bankrupt that they're going to get nervous. They're going to pull the trigger on Cody so Cody can main event night 1 with Drew, because instead of putting, as Sammy pointed out, Liv and Stephanie in the main event of night 1, which would work perfectly fine. They'll get panicked. They'll do that. They'll pull the trigger on that because that's what creative bankruptcy does. I hope I'm wrong. I hope somebody listens to this and goes, oh, man, let's make Rich look like an asshole here, because that's perfectly fine with me. But at the end of the day, I've come to expect this creative bankruptcy era of WWE for what it is, and they're going to go to the low-lying fruit. And the low-lying fruit would just be to go, okay, Cody Rhodes, you're in the main event of night 1 against Drew McIntyre. So we'll see. I hope I'm wrong. I'm really pushing, and you're going to hear even when we get to Elimination Chamber, my pick is definitely not going to be Cody Rhodes. Maybe he doesn't even make it there. If they're smart, he doesn't even make it to the Elimination Chamber. In my opinion, have Drew cost him his shot at the Elimination Chamber. Let's get him out of the way early. And then we can build something with him and Randy or him and whoever. Because I just don't think he should be in the main event. Not because I don't like Cody Rhodes. It has nothing to do. QB1 is fine, but we need to go with something different. They need to breathe some fresh air into WWE, or else it's just going to continue to be stale. And now that people are starting, we got more rounds of people talking about their greed, and that's not going to go away. It's just going to continue. So like we had talked about last year, Sammy and me talked about this at the end of last year, right here on one of the first episodes of 607 TWS. We said, what's going to end up happening is eventually they're going to hit that creative bankruptcy is going to cause people to question things. And then the greed is going to keep in. They're going to still think that they can make all the money that they've been making. and they're going to actually drive people away. And that was why we said it was important for AEW to get their shit together and get in order. And guess what? AEW has, for the most part, not 100%, but for the most part, been firing on most cylinders, and putting on some great shows. You're really in thread of that. So, ball court. So we're going to see. And we're going to be talking about the road to WrestleMania, obviously, all the way until WrestleMania. So we'll leave it for that. But we like to leave on a fun note, and that wasn't as fun of a note. So we're going to leave on a fun note. So chat, make sure you drop it in as well. We want to end with our little editorial. And since Bad Bunny, and we're going to say besides these two, since Bad Bunny and Logan Paul have proven that coming from outside the world of pro wrestling, you can still become a really good wrestler. We were thinking to ourselves, who are some of the other outsiders, so celebrities, singers, athletes who have come into WWE, AEW, WCW, the territory days, whatever we want to bring up, and really gotten it done and really excited people. Obviously, I think we all agree Logan Paul and Bad Bunny are probably the head of the class, so we're going to leave them off of this list just because it's not like a ranking or anything. So let's throw it out there, and I'm going to start off with an old school one before I pass it around. I don't think you get any of this if Andy Kaufman didn't have his feud with Larry the King. And so I will say Andy Kaufman is my pick for an outsider who maybe not as good in the ring as a Bad Bunny or Logan Paul, but definitely outside of the ring bringing eyes on the product. So that would be my first knee jerk selection. Sammy, who do you got?
Two come to mind, but one of them really didn't have like an in-ring career. But in terms of bringing eyes to the product, you got to talk about Mike Tyson. Put some butts in the seats, and he got a referee spot a little bit there, the special enforcer. So you got that. But if you're looking for someone that actually had a match or got involved, Drew Carey, he had a match in WWE. He was in that Royal Rumble. So.
I could go with Drew Carey, yeah? All right.
I like the Mike Tyson one better, but he didn't technically get a match. I mean,
technically he didn't have a match. I mean, he did knock out Shawn Michaels at the end, though, so we'll count a little bit. Ken M, who do you got in here? Who do you want to throw into the mix?
I mean, there's some honorable mentions we have to say. Snoop.
Well, yeah.
When he was in AEW. When
he was in WWE, when he was in WWE, when he saved that match where Shane
O'Mac blew himself out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's right. I forgot.
Remember that. He was a hero. He was a hero of WrestleMania 39.
Yep.
True story.
I was gonna say, who's had some really good luck with athletes crossing over, like from the NFL, was TNA. D'Angelo Williams, when he came in for a quick cup of coffee there. Adam Pac-Man Jones, former tag team champion. But the one I'm going with is Paul Walter Hauser.
Oh yeah, he's made an impact. He's done some stuff in the Indies, the AEW work, Ring of Honor work. Good on him. I love it. Throwing it out there when you talk about NFL connections, of course, you can go back to the Fridge being in the Battle Royal at WrestleMania 2. You can go with Lawrence Taylor main eventing WrestleMania 11. You can also if you're gonna go that route, the late great Steve Mongo McMichaels. You gotta throw it. He paved the way for some of those other football players to go full time. And you could argue that football players have always come over. Obviously, Ron Simmons is a former football player, and The Rock was a former collegiate football player. I mean, but you got to remember, Steve Mongo McMichaels was on that 85 Bears team.
Yep.
So high caliber there coming over. So I just want to, there's been a lot. Yeah, if you go through this, got to give a shout outs to Pete Rose. Pete Rose didn't do any. He didn't really. I mean, I guess he took a couple tombstones, but he didn't have a real wrestling match. But he was definitely an integral part of like 4 WrestleManias. Him and Kane's feud.
Yeah, we focused on NFL, but a couple NBA guys, Shaq. Karl Malone.
How about Jalen Brunson?
Yes.
We won't mention the guy he was in there with because I ain't mentioned that guy's name. I boo every time I see him. You can ask Ken.
New York forever, baby. New York forever.
Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
Dennis Rodman. Rodzilla.
Well, the funny thing about Dennis Rodman is, remember I think it was last year, he was being interviewed on some ESPN show, and in his bio, what they put on the screen, the name or whatever, it said NWO.
Well, when you're NWO,
because NWO
for life, baby. That's
former WCW champion David Arquette,
Bill Goldberg.
Bill
I know we like to
Goldberg.
joke about it.
Well, we got to be
Goldberg.
careful. We don't want Bret Hart to jump in the chat and start talking about.
Oh, by the way, did you
Goldberg.
see his latest? Did you see the Bret Hart? I know we're going to leave here in a second, but did you see his latest sauciness? He wouldn't sign a box because Shawn Michaels already signed it.
Yeah.
I heard it was Goldberg. Okay, so it was Shawn.
Petty till the
Yeah, it was Shawn
end. I
Michaels.
love it.
Wow. Okay.
By the way, I thought they squashed their stuff. Who knows? I don't think you ever squash anything with Bret Hart. Bret Hart is the Alan Moore of professional wrestling, and since we are a comic outlet for you comic fans, you will get that reference, and it is a beautiful one. But yeah, we could go on and on because there's so many great ones. You can even go to somebody like, in WWE was Bad News Brown, but wrestled as Bad News Allen, Olympic, I do believe bronze medalist in judo. Kurt Angle comes to mind. I mean, we could have gone with that. That was a real low-lying fruit. Kurt Angle had an amazing career. So you could also argue that maybe Bad Bunny and Logan Paul aren't the best. You have that category. Kurt Angle is technically in that category. I know it's a weird technicality, but he is.
Yeah.
It's
an interesting history.
Save that argument.
Mark Henry, if you think about
Mark
it.
Henry, world's strongest man.
Yeah.
There's so many
start
great
thinking
things
about it that way. People you think as wrestlers, professional wrestlers first, but really they had such an established career before. And the list starts to really grow then. Yeah, Logan Paul, you got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. you got to overtake Kurt Angle. That's going to be a rough one to overtake. But with that being said, we are coming into the end here because, of course, if you're keeping track, Thursday Night Impact from TNA is coming on or just started. So we always want to make sure you guys get out if you're watching us live. Of course, if you're watching us on rerun, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you drop some comments. We always want to hear from you what you want us to talk about and everything else. By the way, make sure you also head over, hit that QR code, and head over to fanlightzone.com. Check out all the great comic book reviews there. We are comic books, pop culture, and of course, obviously this show, pro wrestling as well. And that means if you are watching us already on the YouTube channel, smash that subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications, and hit that thumbs up. If you're not watching us currently on YouTube, get over to the YouTube channel when it's over to do all of those great things, because we're trying to beat that algorithm and get that everything going, everything cooking, if you smell what the rich is cooking. And on that note, it's going to be look at that. I love that look of disdain. That was my wrestling dad joke, and it works to perfection. With that being said, though, until next week, when we come back and talk all things pro wrestling on 607 TWS, remember that's every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For myself, for Miss Sammy. Oh, wait, almost did it wrong. And then, of course, for the special guest, the guy who dropped in, the editor-in-chief himself, Ken M. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And most importantly, later wrestling fans.